So part of why I was really interested in like making videos and recording my self-talk is to talk about certain experiences I've had, right? And one of them that I really wanted to talk about is my experience that I had going on a mission trip. Sorry, I just ate something. And I went to the Dominican Republic and I only went for 15 days. It wasn't anything crazy. There was like a lot going on in my life. So I was going to go for longer, but then I had to come back home for stuff. Um and if you hear any little noise, it's my cat. He's just moving around doing his thing. So yeah. And yeah, so I kind of want to talk about a little bit about how I got the opportunity, like what it was like for me to be there and what I think it meant for me. Um, so I was raised Protestant and like it was like a church, it was like a Bible-based church and they had like good doctrine and all that good stuff. Not like a super, I would say, like some churches are very fervent and they're very charismatic. Not really my church. We did a lot of service, which I feel like is part of why I am the way that I am, and I'm drawn to things that I'm drawn to, right? But mm, I forgot. All right. So recently, I mean, like I'll get into this on another day where I go in like more deeply into my testimony, but I became Catholic. I'm Catholic now. And I some nuns came for like vocation. That's what they call it. So it's like their whole mission is it's like nuns from different groups and like people who are in seminary, like young fathers who have just started seminaries and who are at like different stages of their path to becoming a father. And they come and they like stay with us for a week and they do church, they do stuff with the kids and like they do stuff with the adults and the families and blah blah blah. So it's kind of cool. um I was here during that time and like I like helping with the kids, so I was invited to go as like someone to help. They're like, oh, do you want to come and help because we always need help, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go. um and I really like I people who give their life in service to God, like pastors or fathers or nuns or monks. Yeah, I don't know how to say it another way, but like all those people in the church, like I always have a lot of respect for them. It's not an easy life. Like you're putting yourself to be vulnerable to things that normal people are. It's a lot of responsibility. I think people forget that they're like human, and sometimes your humanity gets kind of put aside. So I've always just even though I didn't grow up in a Catholic church, so I wasn't around like a bunch of nuns all the time or like fathers. Um, it's just something I don't know. I grew up where there were a lot of pastors, like there were a lot of in my evangelical church, there was like a lot of preachers and like pastors and missionaries. So I grew up around those type of people. So I don't idolize them where I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are like so much better than me or something like that. Cause I think that's how some people think. I just think they're people and they like God chose them and made them for this decision. So I'm always down to help if I can. And so I was helping with the kids and like, I don't know, since coming into the Catholic Church, which it's literally been under a year, um, this whole thing of vocation is like was thrown in my face almost immediately. And I just feel like, I don't know, I'm in a discernment period, but I have no guide. Like, I feel like there's supposed to be someone that I'm supposed to talk to. I know there is, but like, I don't know who they are in my church. Like, there isn't, I don't think there is somebody. Because I feel like they would have talked to me already considering, like, how everyone is saying, like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, like, you're meant to go into the religious life. You're meant to be a nun." Like, that's what everybody tells me. Um, because, like, I've never been in a formal relationship. I'm, like, always in doing stuff for the church. I'm, like, very interested. I had, like, a radical conversion. Everyone is convinced, like, I'm supposed to be a nun, and I'm not against it, but I just don't know if that's what God wants for me, right? And, like, I think people, when they hear that, they're like, "If you even thought about it, like, that means God wants it for you." And I'm like, "I don't know, man." I grew up where, like, everyone was a pastor, so me choosing a vocation where my life is solely dedicated to God is not, like, crazy, where I have to, like, go where they send me. That's not the crazy part. I just don't know if that's what God wants me to do, and that's, like, the difficult part for me. Um, and I just, and I feel like God's kinda like, "Girl, I'm gonna need you to take, like, step by step, like, you need to take the steps that come with literally being in the church." Versus other nuns or other groups of nuns are like, "It's okay, like, just come with us, like, we'll do your first communion and, like, your, confirmation, like, don't even trip, like, we'll do the whole thing." And I'm just like, that's, like, overwhelming, not in a bad way because, like, I wanna help, but it's overwhelming because, like, I feel like at my age, I can't be making, like, the wrong decision. So, like, as much as I talk about, like, relationships and stuff in my writing, even on some of these videos, like, I'm still not even sure if that's, like, meant for me, right? I don't feel like I'm a person who can't be loved or something like that. It's just like I don't know because there's this whole thing. But these nuns came and these seminaries and like all that, and I helped them, and like they just found me like funny, I guess. Like I don't know. And they enjoyed being around me, and I enjoyed being around them. And they were from different groups, like different communities, because there's different communities of nuns and like fathers and all that stuff. And yeah, so we were having a good time. Like I enjoyed talking to them and helping. And they put me to do a lot of things that I wasn't being put to do because, like, no one, well, like everyone kind of has their role usually, but then since they were running things, it's kind of like they're running it and they're like, oh, well, you can do that. Like, you go ahead and sing that. You go ahead and lead that. And I was like, okay. I was like, are you sure? Like, I'm not really formally Catholic. And they're like, oh, it's actually not that deep. Like, what we want is for you to just do it. Like, we're just choosing you to do it. And I was like, okay. And people were like, wow, like you can really do that. And I was like, well, I don't know. I've never gotten the chance. And like, you guys have your role. So I'm not going to come in here and be like, I'm doing this because I feel like I'm not trying to create problems. Right. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But, so through this, I met one specific nun who she was talking to me a lot, and then her and the other nun that came with her, she was not in our community, but she was like in the other community to the side. So then, like at the end, when we did like the whole big thing, she came and I met her, and she was like, "Oh, you should like go into. We're doing mission trips, so like here's a number." Text that number, call that number, and like we'll see what we can do. And I guess this was the first year that they've ever invited people outside to come and help like that. And so I ended up being told that I was going to go to the Dominican Republic. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, it's fine by me. I speak Spanish. So I was like, that's cool. Um, and I was going to go in the summertime. So I was like, wow, it's probably going to be hot, but what are you going to do? And that's kinda how I got there, which is kind of like, interesting for me. I want to make shorter things so they're, like, more consumable than, like, 50 minutes of me yelling, but that was it. It was just literally I met the because I know some churches, they have missions with, like, the father or with other groups, but I've never been invited, and I don't really know, like I try to ask, and they're just like, "Oh, like, they just come up," and I'm just like, "Okay." And, like, I'm not in the loop, like, I don't know, like, how these people are communicating and how they all know stuff all the time, and I don't think it's social media, but I also don't have social media, so even if it is that, then oh, yes, I understand this is social media, but I don't have, like, Instagram, I don't use my Facebook. I don't use, like, any of that kind of stuff, like, I don't even use Messenger, like, I'm not on social media, like, I haven't been for almost, like, 2 years now, a year and a half, I don't know. It's been a while. I have not been using social media, like, I wanna even say almost closer to 2 years, and, so these people, like, always know stuff, but I never know what's going on, and then also it's just a routine, right, because these people have been going to the church for so long, like, there's just a routine and for certain times, right? There's like Advent season, and there's like Easter season, and there's like Lent, and there's all these things. So all these things, like they just have their time and their season. And I am just kind of getting to know that's my cat, by the way. And so it was kind of interesting how it just kind of plopped on my lap because they were like, "Oh, you should come visit us." But then the other lady, the one who I met just that day, she was like, "I think we're gonna give you this lady's number because we're doing missions, and I think that like you should go." And I didn't know where I was going. Like I knew I was going to the Dominican Republic, and I talked to the mother superior in so she told me, like, what airport to go to, but I was even told different airport, so I just listened to her, but I didn't know if I was gonna be with children. I didn't know if I was gonna be with the elderly. I didn't know if I was gonna be at, like, a food bank. I didn't know any of that. I just went. And once I found out I was going to the Dominican Republic, then the nun that I had met in my home church, she asked me like, "Oh, so where are they sending you?" And I was like, "Oh, they're like sending me here." And she was like, "Oh, I think I know who the mother superior is." So that's how I got her number, and that's how I got in communication with her. Um, and then like before I left, then I was like, "Oh, okay." 'Cause I was just like, "Oh, so like what do you guys do?" Because I wanted to bring stuff, because I know this specific like congregation, they do orphanages, like old folks homes and like food banks. That's their main like 3 kind of places. So I was down for either. I mean, I prefer children. I've worked with children my whole life, so I'm always happy to be with them. But I also in my church growing up, they had like a daycare for the elderly. So I'm like used to being around older people. And I always liked it. Like I always had fun like being around the older people and like my mom would take us to go volunteer and like we would help and like clean and stuff like that, but mostly with us like going to go like talk to them and like socialize with them because we were like kids and like I don't know, it's good for them to have somebody to socialize with. So we um we did that. So I'm not like uncomfortable around old people. Um, and then food banks, I've worked at a food bank before. Not worked, but I volunteered at one. My mom used to be like a really big volunteer in our old church of that. So we would go feed people, talk to people, give them food, bag it up, box it up, organize, carry stuff, make stuff, make it clean the table. So I was like, I mean, whatever they end up sending me to, I'm kind of down for. I don't mind. But I did tell them like, oh, I work with kids. But it was so weird communication because I also, will say like I definitely recommend it. I just think like you just need to be willing to ask a lot of questions. And I just wasn't for some reason. I asked a little bit, but they were just kind of like, just come. And I was like, okay. But I just felt like I would have liked I mean, it ended up being fine, so that's why I'm like, it's fine, and if you want to do something like this, I would first go to your specific church and then ask them what they do and see if they go out anywhere because then you'll be going with people you already know, and if not, then I would go to your nearest convent. And you might be like, there's no convent near me. There is. So you can find that and then ask those nuns what they're doing. And then maybe you can help them there, or they can send you to like, because it's not ever like one place, right? There's like one place and then they have like bunch all over the place. So you can then ask them, be like, oh, you guys do blank? I would love to volunteer. Is there a way that I could volunteer in a different state, in a different country, in a different city? And then they'll tell you like no or yeah or and then they'll give you the terms of like, you stay or with them or there's so much. So all that stuff is just part of the whole story, of like if you would like to go do missionary work because there are specific ones within the church and all that stuff. That's why I would go to your father first, or your pastor, and then if not with them, like if you can't find one, because of course you can always go with like a non-denominational organization, but it's always nice to do something with the religious backing in there to help. And it just always ends up being more fruitful. I mean, I like it. I don't mind doing stuff that isn't religious, but I prefer doing things that have like a Christian or Catholic undertone to it because I feel like it feeds my spirit more. So that's kind of like my introduction of how I ended up going. And then I'll talk more about what it was like while I was there because I ended up going to two different places in my short time. And yeah, and let God guide you. Let God take you. There might be mishaps, there might be bumps, there might be changes in the place you go, or it may not be what you're expecting. Just let God do what He's trying to do. And that's hard for me as someone who's autistic. I really like to have an understanding, but I always try to be flexible because I feel like, I just I had to be really growing up because like I didn't have a good excuse of why I couldn't like understand everybody else because I was undiagnosed. So I just had to learn to be flexible and feel uncomfortable inside and learning how to manage with those things, but just be open, be flexible, just be like, God, where do you want me? Let me do what you want me to do. Take me to where you want to take me. And I feel like that's all I can really do at this point. So I'll go more into my time there, but I did just kind of want to do this little introduction. It's probably way longer than what I needed it to be, to like for the little information that was really there. But I love you very much. God loves you so much. And you can do missionary work in your town, in your city, in your state, in your country. Like, it is not like, let's go to Africa. Like, you know, I went here because that's where they sent me. But I would have been happy to have stayed within like North America. Um, or in the Americas. Like because my family's from the Americas, South America. So I would have been happy either way, even if they would have sent me farther, I would have been happy too. If they're like, actually, you're gonna go to like the Philippines, I would have gone. Would have been harder for me because I don't know the language. But I would have put my best foot forward and I would have done, what I could do. But there's missionary work to be done everywhere because right now people are just so hungry, like so poor in spirit, and we need to be out there doing stuff, talking to people and, reinforcing our own faith because a lot of us are religious or Christian or Catholic or whatever, but we're not doing stuff. We're not pushing ourselves. We're not doing any strength training. And we got to do strength training, for people who like go to the gym, not me, but people who go, you don't just like, oh, I'm strong and like that's cool. No, it's like a consistent thing. You have to, oh, I'm changing the type of exercise I do. I'm changing, oh, on this day I work on arms, on this day I work on like you got to exercise that. And part of that, even if your gift isn't like evangelization or prophecy or something along those lines, and you're more like a service, there's a way for you to involve yourself where you're not like the one talking, where you are the one doing, if that's what you feel like it is to do, or you're the one listening and giving compassion. There are pockets for that in so many places. And if your church doesn't have it, find a denomination that you feel comfortable, like make sure, you do your own work, come on. And then you find a way to do that because we need to work out those muscles of all those fruits of the spirit and all those gifts. They're not all your gifts, obviously, but just because I don't feel like my gift is hospitality doesn't mean that like I'm rude to people and that if I see an opportunity to be hospitable, I don't do it because it's not my gift. All of those are things for us to have, they're characters for us to have in part. Of course, we have our major ones, we have our main gifts. God formed us all individually, but it doesn't mean certain things. And like certain things are not going to come across right. And it is okay. It's about your heart and God knowing that intention. So, my recommendation is to put yourself out there and try it and see what you can do and like find a group of people that you're interested in working with. Is it young people? Is it kids? Is it older people? Is it people who are married? Is it people who are single and young? People who are single and old? Like find your niche and then just go for it because people are yearning for God and you can be that solution. I mean, not you, but like God can use you and you can be that instrument to create beautiful music that will just bring people to Him, which is ultimately our job. He said, go to the ends of the earth. I always remember, I chose you. You didn't choose me to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. Fruit that will last is the hope, is the love, is the faith, all those beautiful things that are given to us because we have God. And we can go give those in so many ways. Um, that's really it. I just wanted this to be kind of a short video. I don't think it is now that I'm thinking about it because I just started talking, but you know, go for it.